Welcome to the Sankofa Ancestor Shrine, where, every week, we invite spiritual Black folk to reconnect with our ancestors as we journey through the crossroads. Please consider donating through patreon.com/Sankofa Shrine. Ancestors, we turn to you for answers when we have none. Open our minds and hearts to the answers we are now too closed off to see. Allow us to overcome our worries, to reach new possibilities, and help us hold ourselves to higher standards with the courage to work on ourselves and our spiritual relationship with you. Ashe. All right, let's start with 3 deep cleansing breaths.
Hey Teru, you're beautiful. Hey Teru, your principles have touched my femininity. Hey Teru, you've blessed my heart
Hello, welcome to the Sankofa Ancestor Shrine. I'm your host, Sacred Woman Practitioner Tatami, and today I have a talk that is about imposter syndrome in spirituality, specifically African traditional religions, conjure, and this could also technically apply to other types of indigenous people and people who are descended from the indigenous looking to reclaim these ancient religions, looking to reclaim their forms of paganism or even branch into newer things like Wicca, which has kind of an amalgamation of a few older things. So this talk is something that's kind of been on my mind. I went ahead and wrote actually out a lot of thoughts because I wanted to try and not only do impromptu talks with everybody or discuss, excerpts from books, spiritual readings um, that I own, but I also wanted to, just give out thoughts on my own, just from things that I've been seeing in the community and just speaking on these things from my heart. So, yes, today we are talking about your birthright, your bloodline, and that feeling of not quite feeling adequate or perhaps feeling like a fraud or like you don't really belong. We spend the majority of our time in our own minds, right? Thinking about our own things, and it can come as a delight when others affirm those thoughts or plans, ideas, and that they affirm that these thoughts are amazing, that they're positive, that they inspire other people, or even that these thoughts are simply okay to have, right? That can just be a weight off our shoulders. When it comes to spirituality, however, especially African traditional religions and reclaiming these indigenous religions, we often don't have that same luxury. The average person doesn't. It's not something we are really affirmed in unless we spend time, excess time, either searching out for that, building those types of relationships with somebody if we can find it, or spending the money to have a mentor of some sort lead us and teach us what they know and take us under their wing in some capacity. This could be for initiation. This could just be a local priest or priestess, medicine man, conjure woman, what have you. And this usually requires payment of some sort. And you some people do sliding scale, or if they see something in you, they'll help you out in certain ways, but overall the general rule is this takes a lot of time and energy out of somebody, so you would need to be able to participate in the purchasing of materials during your process of learning. So this is just not something most of us can do, right? It's not something very accessible. Most of us don't know anybody local, and maybe don't want to do online classes or can't afford the online classes from the masters and professionals. Um, so this is heightened by the fact that our ATRs are not very widespread yet. We cannot typically find a local temple or shrine to physically go to, which is, how a lot of other people are maintained and affirmed in other religions that have churches, temples, mosques, etc. And they're able to have a physical place to go to. And really, there's a church on every block. Whereas for us, we often have to either travel or just there's nothing local. There's a lot of spiritual shops, but there's not really, and that's even kind of hard to get to. There's usually like one or two in each city, and that's about it. That's about it. So it's difficult to find that in-person situation where you can find people to pray with, to process and discuss with, and to bounce your ideas off of. This basically leaves most of us to the internet, and many are finding, are myself included, a lot of the times, as hard as it can seem with all these videos I've been uploading for so long, but that's mostly I uploaded because I felt as though I was just a silent spectator, and I had taken classes with Queen Afua and done birth work and worked with several, other types of spiritual workers and practitioners. So I knew that I had something to share and that this was important. We needed people who had something to share to reach out and do something if they knew something. And not everyone's willing to do that. And a lot of people are a lot more protective of their knowledge. And a lot of people have a lot more knowledge than I do to protect. And so, many of us are just silent spectators a lot of the time, scrolling through forums and timelines, occasionally speaking up, mostly just trying to glean whatever information we can without really overly exposing ourselves, embarrassing ourselves. Some people are really willing to come off as very new and newbie, but some people, so sometimes that can really backfire, especially if you're being really a demanding newbie who's just asking a lot of questions and not putting a lot of personal work into researching and reading and being a silent spectator. So the asking the questions can be daunting, piecing together the different fragments of what you're learning, remembering old things, trying to put those things together and remembering how they relate. This can be exhausting. And as time goes on, it's hard to wonder if you're really welcome, because there is no like official anything going on. And further, like I said, if you become too demanding, a lot of people will kind of check you. And this can be something that's necessary, firstly, so that you're not overly demanding and treating this religion without due reverence and respect and personal work. But at the same time, because of people's experience in other religions, which are just so eager to welcome anybody and everybody's in, and you do just kind of basic stuff and you're part of the big number. So this is a little bit different. And because it's different and people aren't used to the rules and used to the culture, a culture that is very protective and secretive, not by design originally, but because it had to change that way to survive for so long. So it's hard to know also if you're in the right place, therefore, right? It's hard to know if you've found your tribe or if maybe you're still in the wrong place. It also doesn't help that, because you can be in the wrong place at the wrong time, somebody could potentially say a comment to you that can leave you just winded or feeling really attacked and hurt, sometimes for weeks at a time. It depends on where you are in your spiritual journey. So you wonder if you know enough, if you're doing enough, why your journey is not the same as others. Even if you're really thick-skinned, this can all start to really get to you, or it can come at you on a day where you're not ready, what have you. So many others appear to be doing great things, especially in these forums. It just feels as though you just don't know, and you still don't know, even though it's been kind of a little while. This is what I would call the imposter syndrome, and I think it's exacerbated by being online, which is basically our only option to connect with each other. So at this point, when we're in these situations, despite the whole bloodline that backs us, the spiritual achievements that you have absolutely done and earned so far, despite your abilities proving themselves to you day after day a little bit more as you become more comfortable with yourself and more knowledgeable with what you're doing, you still believe that you're in the wrong place, that you're a fraud, that you don't know enough, that you don't know enough to do other things, that because you haven't reached the places other people have reached, that you should maybe just give up now and give up on the journey. And that maybe somebody actually will expose you as some kind of fake, which would be just awful, and not really, something I feel like other people can really prove in all ways. I mean, sometimes, like, if somebody's selling something that clearly doesn't do that thing, obviously that's obviously fraudulent, but we're not talking about sellers. We're talking about just basic practitioners, basic people who are, conjure workers, the conjure people. They just work with their ancestors and spirit, maybe nature, and that's about it. And they're just trying to be a part of this culture while still going about their average everyday life. So this feeling can be exacerbated by the mistakes that we make every day in life. And as we continue to compare ourselves to others, we may begin to slow down on our own spiritual work, even give up and come to a place of complete stagnation where we're no longer even putting a lot of effort into ourselves. We may still be inundating us with ourselves with symbolism or messages or what other people are doing, and feeling inspired, but at the same time, we're not actually putting in that effort for ourselves anymore. Or we never really got to that place in the first place. So recognize first that everybody has shortcomings, right? I think that's the very first step we should focus on if we're looking to overcome this imposter syndrome in our spirituality. Recognize that what you see online is usually people's best face forward. It's usually the best information that they can possibly give you at this time to inspire you, to take you to a new place, etc. Um, Also recognize that everyone has those struggles. Everyone has hopes and dreams. Everybody has those moments where maybe they don't have enough money in the bank, or they don't know what step to take, or they find themselves abandoned in this situation or that situation. Recognize that this happens to everyone, even the people who look the happiest online, even the people who run your, favorite group on Facebook. They all go through something. They just may or may not choose to share it with you, especially if they're very popular. A lot of people just choose not to share negative information so that it can't be like worked against them by other people, because people get jealous, and people start getting rivalries, and this can really impact some of the more popular people. So that's also why you may not see them really post about their struggles unless they're really secure, or it's something that's like kind of already passed and not something they really have to worry about anymore. So next, I encourage you to turn your head away from other people's journeys. If you can, focus on just being joyful for others, but releasing the need to experience exactly the same as them and in the same order and the same time frame or period, because very inspirational people of all different types of ages and lifestyles find themselves kind of going through the same journey, but it was at a different point in their lives and when they could utilize it at that point. And some people who come really late in the game, they end up switching everything around in an artistic front, a spiritual front, whatever, what have you. So, recognize that you really don't have to start at this like at super advanced young age, and you don't have to start much later in things. Don't give yourself these time limits and time frames according to how other people's lives have led, because their life is been dictated by who could help them, what money they had, what opportunities they had, which city they were living in. It's a very different situation than what you'll ever go through. So go ahead and look at your journey as it is today, right now, and ask yourself, what path are you on? What can you start doing today that can add to your own spiritual journey? Start small, start simple, start with what you have, but start in whatever way you can. Just start doing things for you. That can be meditation, prayer, spiritual bath, yoga, waking up early at 5 a.m. to clean the house and get everything in order for your day, cutting back on social media for only a certain amount of time a day so you can work on your other things. Maybe you have books you haven't been reading. Maybe you have different techniques, your divination that you want to start doing, making that a daily practice. Even if it's just wanting to wake up and kneel at the side of your bed and give a 10-15 second prayer that you've written for yourself, that is an excellent goal to start. That works on your own spirituality and your own spiritual work, and it will help you feel better about your own place, because one, you're conversing with your ancestors, and two, you are putting in work into your spiritual practice. And I mean, if you're praying daily, that's something a lot of people aren't doing. So I mean, if you're praying over your food, praying over your water, praying over your floor wash and things like that, you're doing a lot more than a lot of other people. So it's not really a competition, but it's finding those ways that you can do those things for yourself, and understand that you are putting in that work, you are putting in that effort, you are infusing spirituality into your everyday life. So finally, remember that this is your birthright, and that your ancestors are your family. You have ancestral memories and knowledge just waiting to be accessed, and your ancestors work with you way more and way better than they work with anybody else, right? If some other rando was to try and call in your grandma and boss her around, it would intrigue her in some ways, but the chances that she'd put the full effort that she puts into you is just pretty much slim to none, right? It's not, unless they're like a famous celebrity figure that everybody knows and invokes the name of often. It's just not really plausible. So you have this kind of weapon that basically only your family has, and depending on how your family is like created, you could have different ones than all of your siblings, right? You could have different ones than your cousin. You obviously have different ones than your cousins, but you also share some, right? So because your ancestors will work with you the way they won't work with anybody else, know that can allow their voices to guide you and remind you and inspire you throughout your journey, and helps you keep your head up and keep you doing those small steps to do those things for you. And it's not really something you have to proclaim to the world, but you can, keep diaries and documentation, and your Instagram can be your diary if need be, and to remember what you're doing, and to connect, and to remind yourself that you are doing this, right? That you are putting in this work. So you could just have a Polaroid camera and take pictures and keep them in a journal. That would also be a really private and beautiful way to keep track of your conversations and thoughts with the ancestors. But remember that you are putting in that work, and do the work so that you can continue to feel affirmed by your ancestors and by the knowledge that they give you. So know you have this unique set of ancestors specific to you, and that this is special and absolutely ensures your place in the community. This is very much a bloodline religion, as many indigenous ones are, but not all of them. So there are different rules depending. But this is something that you have, and not something that you need to question or feel like you're a fraud about. Just you being you is enough, right? It is enough for you to be a part of everything. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all the people who leave comments. I appreciate it. And a special thank you to all of the patrons still on Patreon. I know times are really hard, and it's really wonderful to know that some of you are still kicking around and helping out and supporting this channel, even as, stuff goes to hell. So you keep this whole operation going for sure, for sure. So thank you. So may your ancestors and spirit guides be with you at every crossroads, and I will see you next time.